Hey, y'all. Hey. Mike. Guess what day it is? Hump day. How y'all doing? Oh, boy. Hi. How's everybody doing? Good, I hope, on this Wednesday evening for me here in the Floridas. I hope you guys are having a great day or evening or afternoon, whatever's happening wherever you're at. I'm tired, y'all. I don't know how some of these people be streaming for like 87 hours. I am exhausted. I'm too old for this. I'm sorry. I'm already wearing, I'm going to make you guys yawn and you're going to leave. All right, hang on. All right, so when last we left off, Mr. Brooks was opining about all things, and at no point did he even come anywhere near the vicinity of any type of point at all. And let's get over there. Let's see. Where at what do I want to do? Here we go. Hang on. In fact, let's say hi to everybody. Hi, Jody is cool. Hi, Faraway Eyes. Hey, Charlie. Hey, Mama Stone. Hey, Support with Steffa. Good to see you. Glad you guys are here. I don't think I missed anybody. No. Okay, good. Anywho, so yeah, Mr. Brooks was just yammering on forever and ever and ever and ever. Hold on. So let me get to skipping here. Because there comes a point oh, it's muted. You know, we watched all this. Remember how you guys were like, how long can he go on? Well, apparently like 2 hours, because at about the 2-hour mark, Judge Dora was like, hold the phone. You're going on for too long, and you're really not doing what you're supposed to be doing at this sentencing hearing. You're not talking about like mitigating circumstances or what you would want to have for a sentence, what you think would be fair, or any of that. This hurts my heart, even though, like, I know what you mean. I know you don't mean that you went to sleep because of me. You went to sleep because it's like super, late or early where you were at the time. And it just, yeah, no, I know. He went on for forever. So we have that to talk about, okay? And he ended up getting sentenced. We're going to kind of skip around a little bit because honestly, it was a long day for everybody, and I'm 15 minutes later than I wanted to be, but I just needed like a minute. And plus, I had a struggle with the thumbnail. Like, I don't know where all my creativity has gone, but it's left the building. And that thumbnail took me way too long to make. I can usually crank out a decent thumbnail in like 15 minutes. This one took me like, I don't know, an hour and a half or something like that. And it's not even that great. Okay. So let's get right into this with Mr. Brooks here. Before we get into it with Mr. Brooks, okay, the closed captions aren't available. Sorry about that, you guys, but I'm going to have to speed him up because I'm not going to be able to make it at regular speed. I'm just not. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry that there's no closed captionings, but that's We're just going to listen for a little bit, then we're going to skip through. He had an outburst a couple of times. We'll get to that, and then I'll skip all the way to where Judge Darrell gets to sentencing. All right, here we go.
Because I have to be medicated for life for it, because they feel like it's not normal. Which lends to the reason why I said not wanting to live to please anyone else anymore, but for me to be okay. Here, for me to be okay. Because I haven't been for a long time.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there, sir. Just excuse me for one moment, although you don't have a problem interrupting people. What I'd like to say here about this whole, before I forget, because I will forget. Look, Mr. Brooks, the thing about this is, first of all, this is you're not using the sentencing, whatever this sentence, what am I trying to say? Hearing for its intended purpose. More to the point, and I think probably worse of all, is this is sort of like him having the last word and explaining things and in his way, an attempt at setting things right between the people in his life, something that he didn't afford his victims. Okay. And that's annoying to me, frustrating to me, and I find it to be extremely disrespectful. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Now let's get to it.
Some days I don't know what's up or down. Some days I don't know. I want to know.
Mr. Brooks, it's going on 2 hours. I feel like we're starting to cover the same ground over and over. So I'm going to ask you again, because I'm really interested in your perspective. I want to know, as I consider and contemplate and finalize what to do in this case, if there are any sentencing recommendations you have on your own behalf to make at this time.
I just want to be helped. I don't want to live with inside this pain anymore. I know that's probably not the answer you're looking for. Your Honor,
I don't either, Faraway Eyes. I really don't.
Let me ask it this way, sir. 6 of these counts that you have been convicted of are intentional homicide charges. The options for the court are very limited. Life without the possibility of extended supervision. Life with the possibility of extended supervision as early as 20 years, that's the statute. And third, anything in between. And then lastly, related to that, there's an enhancer of 5 years for each count based upon the jury answering that special verdict question: did you commit the offense of intentional homicide by using a dangerous weapon? Thoughts on that?
I don't.
Do you think you should spend the rest of your life in prison without ever seeing freedom outside bars? That would be extended supervision. Should these counts run consecutive or concurrent? Meaning one after the other, or serving them at the same time? What are your thoughts on those things?
Excuse me, you guys. Sorry.
I didn't understand everything you said, but I did.
What?
I can't live a million years.
I understand that.
Hi, Anaphylaxis. Good to see you, babe. Hey, guys, if you haven't done so already, would you give your girl a thumbs up? I'd appreciate it.
I should be able to.
Let me mute because I got. Hi, Corky. Good to see you, babe.
I can be helped, or I can be properly evaluated, or I can be properly medicated. If that is an extended period of a long, long time,
they pass out meds in jail or prison.
I'm getting what I need, not what I want, what I need. At least then, I would be able to say, it's okay. You can be you. you can be grateful for the fact that you have experts, or I don't know if that's the right word, but you have people that
Objection, non-responsive.
know exactly what to do, that recognize exactly what needs to be done and what should be done, to be able to, like I said, be properly medicated,
Mm-hmm.
which is extremely needed. I don't know if that answers.
No, it
I'll follow
doesn't.
up again, what I hear you saying, sir, is that you don't have a specific recommendation in terms of how long the sentences are, whether they're life, whether they're consecutive, whether they're concurrent, but you're asking me to take into consideration your mental health needs and your desire to get help. Would that be fair?
Yes, I would say. And
He really is far away eyes.
I think it should be what you said. What was the term you used?
The extended supervision term, or consecutive versus concurrent?
Yeah, what?
Concurrent.
Right, serving sentences at the same time versus consecutive, one after the other.
Serving all together.
You'd like all your sentences to be together. Wonderful.
My main thing is, like I said, regardless,
I don't know what. Hold on a second.
My sentencing remarks here today. At this time, it's been over 2 hours. I appreciate all of the words you've said here today and the fact that you've made a statement.
I apologize for the length. I didn't even
It's not about
realize.
time. It's okay. But at this time, I would like to take about a just shy of 20-minute break, come back at 3 p.m. and start my portion of the sentencing hearing with my sentencing remarks and the sentence.
Perfect,
But this
Judge.
time, we will be in recess until 3 p.m. Thank you, everyone. All right, we are back on the record in State versus Brooks. Appearances are as they were before.
Sorry, you guys. I can't be. He just.
I'll give you all a little bit of my roadmap for my remarks here today and what will ultimately conclude with the sentencing. I'm going to start with a review, frankly, of Mr. Brooks's NGI plea. I wasn't going to start out doing that, but I feel compelled to make a record of certain things in light of many.
I
of the
had
statements that were
forgotten
made here
that
today
this
by
was
Mr. Brooks and
his
family.
plea.
Following that, I'm going to talk about the case, the strength of the case, the witnesses and evidence that was presented, and some of the things that really impacted me throughout that time and throughout the nearly 4 weeks of trial. Then I will spend some time talking about the victims, their victim impact statements, and again, things that have stood out here to me. I cannot comment on all of the victim statements that have been made, but there are a few that I do want to highlight. And then ultimately go through the sentencing factors. Because all of these things I'm going to talk about relate to those factors, which in Wisconsin, there are 3 primary factors: the seriousness of the offense, the need to protect the public, and the character and rehabilitative needs of the defendant. So I want to start sort of near the end of all of the remarks over the last couple of days, and that is with my thoughts on Mr. Brooks and his mental health.
Sorry, you guys.
I'm not here to debate that you have had a history over time of intersecting with the mental health agencies, and that you may have in your history trauma, emotional pain, and things of that nature. I have read through not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 reports from experts, people who are well known in this field of what we call forensic psychology and psychiatry, individuals who have an expertise in evaluating a plea of not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect. Because I don't want there to be any doubt in my sentencing here today that I've considered that. But I also don't want there to be any doubt that somehow this trial was missing something. Because the fact is, Mr. Brooks entered a special plea of not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect in the early summer, maybe late spring of this year. And this court ordered 3
Why do you look
court-ordered evaluations.
confused?
And the
You're the
state
one that
retained
put
an
that
expert
in.
to also review the issue. Whether
He's
the
over
defense
here
team at
like,
that
what
point
you
ever
mean, hey?
hired anyone, they are not required to disclose that. I don't know. But I have 4 well-known doctors who have written this court based upon the orders that were made or one doctor being retained. And these are reports that are thorough, One report is 24 pages. Another is
Hi to
more of a summary.
everybody
It's
just
8
coming
pages.
in that's
Another
not
is
chatted
26
yet.
pages. And then another is 12. And they look at the discovery information. So police reports, videographic evidence, things of that nature. They have access to any mental health related records from prior stays or things like that. They look at a history. They meet with Mr. Brooks. I've referenced this in the past when competency wasn't so much raised by any of the parties here, but during the trial, there was, as Attorney Opper wanted to make a record one day of Mr. Brooks's competency. And I will restate what I stated at that point. I have absolutely no doubt that Mr. Brooks is competent. I'm obviously well-versed in the legal standard.
Hey, guess
that
who
is
else
not
is competent?
something that this court was frankly
Lori
ever
Vallow.
concerned about.
She was
at any
found
point in time.
competent to
I
stand
know that
trial
his
today,
attorneys,
you
when he had
guys.
attorneys, never raised the issue. And it was really only after the trial began that that issue was raised, I think, by the public based upon what they saw. But Attorney Opper, like myself, had the benefit of having reviewed each and every one of these examinations. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but I think it's important because it goes also to Mr. Brooks's character, which is one of the things that this court must consider along with his rehabilitative needs. And I'm going to read parts of these evaluations
We're just
so
going
that
to
you all
listen to a
understand the
minute, a
information
couple,
that I have.
just a little bit of
It
this.
is my opinion that mental health issues did not cause him to do what he did on November 21 of 2021, and frankly did not play a role. That's not to say that he wasn't diagnosed with something. I've referenced this previously, but that's an antisocial personality disorder. And this is what one of the reports has to say. They've looked at one doctor indicated that there was available evidence to sustain a diagnosis of cannabis abuse, intoxication, antisocial personality disorder, adjustment disorder with mixed disturbance of emotions and conduct. And the reports go on to describe what those things are and that they may qualify as an abnormal condition of the mind substantially affecting mental or emotional processes, and thus as a mental disease or defect as broadly defined by the Wisconsin jury instructions. And that's at least as to the adjustment disorder. Cannabis abuse or intoxication would not. The diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder, and this is what the doctor said, reflects converging support of an underlying characterological disorder versus a major mental illness. In Mr. Brooks's case, I would note his history of disregarding the rights of others and conforming to societal norms, including in the forms of multiple acts of violence beginning in his youth, contacts with the criminal justice system, lack of remorse as indicated by being indifferent, rationalizing, etc. The doctor goes on that it's her understanding that this characterological condition would not qualify as a mental disease or defect as defined by the applicable statute, which also specifies that mental disease or defect does not include an abnormality manifested only by repeated criminal or otherwise antisocial conduct. Goes on to talk about her opinion regarding criminal non-responsibility. And the examiner rendered an opinion to a reasonable degree of professional certainty that there was not support for the defendant's special plea, that the facts at hand do not sustain a conclusion to a reasonable degree of professional certainty that because of symptoms of a mental disease or defect, Mr. Brooks was rendered to lack substantial capacity either to appreciate the wrongfulness of the alleged misconduct or conform his conduct to the requirements of the law at the time in question. In arriving at this opinion, the following considerations were significant to this examiner. While acknowledging Mr. Brooks' documented history of episodic contacts with mental health professionals beginning in adolescence, most of the time he has had such contacts or received mental health treatment when in custody. In effect, there is not a sustained, documented history of a diagnosed major mental illness for him predating the alleged offense or otherwise.
Okay.
In our criminal justice system, sometimes they do unspeakable things. They hurt other people. Gas station, how you turned the wrong way down a one-way street, waved your hands in the air, rolled. She was very contrite about this. She told you where she was. She invited you out there. That you had contact with her on the 20th. There was some physical. Mr. Brooks, this is my time. You need to not interrupt.
Hey, Gregory. Here we go.
You need
Hold on. Let's have this, because she's had enough and she needs to get her say, and it should not be slowed. All right, here we go. Sorry.
The witnesses related to Ms. Patterson, we heard from Corey Runkle, we heard from Erica Patterson herself. My impression, based upon Erica Patterson's testimony, who, by the way, she showed grace and dignity facing you, the man who clearly has no regard for her as a mother of one of your children, as someone you had a domestic partnership with and a relationship with at one point. We know And I would say this goes to your character, what was shown through that altercation and going uphill.
Gregory, did
following
I say
her,
hi? If
slapping
I didn't,
her.
I meant to. Hi.
You know, the rules don't matter to
I'm
you.
sorry, you guys.
It's not
I'm
the rules of the
tired. Your
road,
girl is
not the
just
rules established
bleh.
by court orders, not the rules even of decorum and decency. And I'll
Oh.
get to this more fully when I talk about your character. And I know you went hard at Attorney Opper for her bringing these things up, but those are legitimate, lawful sentencing considerations. And when I get to that point, I'll tell you the case law that supports that. Your character, even your pending cases.
I don't need no case law.
Oh. Okay.
We know at the time of all of this, right? You were out on bond for 2 felony cases.
Okay,
One
good.
involving a handgun.
Just wanted to make sure.
One involving the same vehicle and Erica Patterson, and one involving ultimately intimidation of Ms. Patterson. We know that on November 20th, and she was very contrite about this. She told you where she was. She invited you out there. And that you had contact with her on the 20th. There was some physical. Mr. Brooks, this is my time. You need to not interrupt.
That's the reason why the charge was dropped.
Mr. Brooks,
the state
you need to stop.
said specifically, wrote you, Your Honor, and said that they know it was no incident that day.
Mr.
And
Brooks,
now you want to sit up here.
do not interrupt me
you,
or you will be removed to the other
and now
courtroom.
you want to sit up here
Stop.
and try to
now.
add something in that you know for a fact never even happened. You want to sit up here
Mr.
and
Brooks,
talk about
every
who
time
has grace and all this. You talking about someone with 5 kids that don't have custody.
you need to stop
None of
right
them.
now or you will be removed.
Remove me then.
How
All
many?
right, he
how many
will be
kids do
removed.
you
He
have
cannot
custody
simply
of?
stay
I don't
quiet.
consent
when
to
this
Look at the
court
deputies.
starts.
Anyway, I don't consent to this. Just like I told you, I don't know the.
He'll be in recess until he's
I don't
removed
even
to the other
understand
courtroom.
the true nature and cause.
And with that, he's removed. And we're going to, he's in the other room.
But until he writes me a pledge that he will not interrupt me under Illinois versus Allen, he is not coming back in this courtroom. He has forfeited his right to be present during my remarks. And unless he makes that pledge to me in writing, he's not coming back in.
All right. Hold on.
Gone left on Martin Street.
Yeah, she broke the crime
Continuing
all
on.
the way down, you guys.
Barstow Avenue. This is where I was driving the support vehicle. And when he was being cross-examined about why he didn't see the driver, no panic, no distress. His heart sank. He knew it was not.
He had to sit in there for a
He
while.
talked about the community rising like a phoenix. And how she's gave your right to do so. Without that, that's not a convenience for you over there. It's you go over there when you frankly demand removal.
I went
under
too far.
Illinois versus
My
Allen.
bad.
Man, anything.
No, your conduct did. So
My
you can
conduct
sit.
didn't man anything either.
Right,
We'll
Mr.
just
Brooks,
leave
please
it
sit
here.
down.
You keep changing
And I'm
the
going to continue
jurisdiction.
with my sentencing remarks.
You keep changing the jurisdiction. Jurisdiction, it's a subject matter jurisdiction that has yet to be proven on the record.
Oh my God. Are
And
we
that
really
person in
back
this-
to this?
Please sit down.
I would like to go back to the other courtroom.
It's not a courtesy to you. If you'd like to specifically waive your right to be physically present, then I will entertain that. Otherwise, you need to sit
I
down.
never waived the right to not be present.
That's
I
because
had
you
to-
forfeited your right
I
to be
didn't
present
forfeit
by
anything, Your
conduct.
Honor.
You're
I
now
wrote-
back in this courtroom.
Your Honor, I wrote 3. I did what you asked me to do.
You never once pledged to me, sir, that
No.
you would not interrupt. And
You-
you're demonstrating by being here that you continue to interrupt.
He just
Man, I ain't
cannot
trying to hear all
act
that,
right.
Because at the end of the day, I did what you asked me to do. You told the bailiff to tell
Mr.
me.
Brooks, this is not a
Exactly.
debate.
Far
You told
away
the bailiff to
eyes.
tell
It's
me
not
that
a
I had
debate.
to
You
write.
asked to come over here and I honored that.
Well,
and
I
I brought you
exercised my
back.
right 3 times.
And now you've
I
acted
shouldn't
a
have had to
fool,
do it
so
3
now you got
times.
to
None
bounce.
of those opportunities that you wrote to me said,
He's
I
out.
pledge to not interrupt.
I never had to do
Darrell.
that before.
Yes, you have.
You've never required that before.
That is actually not true, sir.
You've never required that before. Every single time that I've been brought over there, after some time, sometimes very short, sometimes an extended
Brooks,
period of time.
You are just simply trying to delay the
I'm-
inevitable. Please sit
I
down.
don't care about the inevitable. It was
I need
already
to
written
get
from day
through
one
this
what was going to
hearing.
happen. It doesn't make me lose any sleep about that. I know I'm okay. I'm okay with everything.
Then please sit down.
I just want to be treated fairly, which I have
Please.
not been.
Please sit down.
And then Your Honor, and then you
Mr.
always make it
This
seem
is
like
not a
you always
debate.
make it seem like it's some type of aim, and it's not.
Please sit down.
We're talking about constitutional rights. You just told me, or you told the bailiff
don't
to
have a
tell me that I had to
constitutional
right to exercise a right that I should already have.
It's a
I did that.
sentencing. It's a statutory.
Not once, not
right.
twice, 3 times. And it still wasn't honored. And then I raised this sign. I'm
Mr.
waving
Brooks,
this for like 20 minutes,
You're-
saying I would want to come back. I'm doing this.
You're
Hey,
here now.
Can I come back? Can I come back? Can
So
I come
sit
back?
down.
It wasn't honored. And then
So I
said,
can
okay,
finish.
I'll write this and I'll see if Your Honor can see it on the screen. The objection sign saying,
Mr.
I've
Brooks,
exercised my right
if
to
you
be present.
stop for a
May I have the
minute,
order of the court?
I'll explain it, but you have to stop so
I'm
I
not
can
putting my-
explain it.
Your Honor, I did what you asked me to do.
Actually not.
Yes.
She's
Let
asked
me
you to
explain.
sit down
And if
like
I did-
87
if I
times
didn't,
and
Your
you
Honor,
haven't done it.
If I did not do what you asked me to do, then why was I allowed to come back if I did not do what you asked me
Because I'm frankly going to a very distinct portion of this hearing where I am going to impose sentence.
Okay, that doesn't
And
answer
that
the question. though, Your
matters.
Honor.
She's
doesn't
answering
answer the
you,
question.
weirdo.
Please sit down and I will explain
Oh my
and
Your
remain
God.
quiet
With all
without
due-
interrupting me.
With all due respect.
That doesn't mean you're respecting me, so please sit down.
With all due respect, you told the bailiff when I first said, because every time that I've been brought over there in the past,
Hey,
Mr.
Submit
Brooks,
You always
you.
stated-
I don't need a history
you always
lesson of
stated-
what I've done.
that when I exercise my right to be present,
Untrue.
you've
Untrue.
always said, we
Untrue.
have the record. We have the record.
We sure do.
We can dig into the record.
Mr. Brooks,
We
I
have
know what
YouTube,
I
too.
know
I'll-
what the
I'll
requirement
scroll
was
back,
of me
sir.
going over there. You've always stated on the record that when I exercise my right to be present, you will bring me back if I will follow the rules of decorum. That's your exact words, which you
I'm
said
living
every
for
time.
this
which
guy
you're
right
I've never-
demonstrating
I've
right now
never
that
had-
you have absolutely
Your
no
Honor,
ability to do.
With all due respect, I've never had to go through any type of certain words that needed to be said or stressed
Jen, how
or
you
anything
doing,
like
babe?
that before. I've always done it the way that you've asked me to do it. No different than today when I told the bailiff I would like to be present. You told the bailiff if he wants to be present, he has to put it in writing.
And pledge to me that he will not interrupt me
I put it in writing.
without a pledge.
So why am I here?
Oh my God, just get him out of there.
Because I'm going to move on to another phase of this hearing, and I thought it important that you be here in person.
So I was here.
But you didn't reclaim your right to be back here.
Then why am I here
am
then, Your Honor?
allowing it to
Okay,
happen.
and I respect that you're allowing it, but still, it doesn't answer the question, though, Your Honor. It does not answer the question.
Mr. Brooks,
Your Honor, as a
Mr.
public
Brooks.
servant, I have the right to ask questions
Sir.
of Your Honor.
I'm going to ask you one more time, and if you refuse to sit down, then you are in direct disobedience of a court order. Sit down and be quiet so I can make the appropriate record.
Can you tell me what the
All
court
right,
order
he's
is?
not going to obey. He's now
I
forfeited
didn't
his
say
right
I
to be
wasn't going to
present.
obey.
He will go into the
I
other
didn't say I
courtroom.
wasn't going to
Now,
obey.
I like
Please
how
set
this guy
the
just
order.
popped up out
I
of
just asked
nowhere
what is the order. I didn't say.
and was like, let's go. We tired of you. All right.
Erica Patterson was conveyed to Frederick Memorial Hospital. Mr. Brooks talked about at times this being the will of God or that all things happen for a reason. I'm here to tell you, Mr. Brooks, you are not an instrumentality of God.
That bailiff
Death
wasn't
may
playing.
be inevitable to all
Hey,
of us,
Wilson, man.
but you cut the lives of
Hey,
6
Sky
individuals
flashed.
short.
She's about to sentence
You,
him.
You alone,
And then
Mr.
we're going to
Brooks,
get over
cut the
to
lives of these
old
6
George
innocent
Wagner
people
because
short.
that afternoon
I talked
testimony,
earlier
as I
about
understand
how I
it,
believe
was
he's intelligent,
very interesting.
deliberate, and purposeful in what he does. I've considered that you have treatment needs. Perhaps there are intersecting mental health issues as it relates to your personality disorder.
Mm-hmm.
But
He's a
those
cluster B,
issues
y'all.
can best be addressed in a confined setting where the Department of Corrections will be charged statutorily to evaluate you and to provide any medical or mental health treatment that you need. This is a case that
You
falls
picked the right
squarely
night to be here, Jen. You picked the right
on the
night,
need to
ma'am.
protect the community. I referenced this earlier. There's really three primary reasons for the sentences I will impose here today. One is punishment, one is to protect the community, and the other is to provide justice and closure to the victims. Because under that category of need to protect, the court does get to consider the impact of these crimes on the victims. I went through at length
Oh, I do, Gregory.
in
I
reviewing
do.
all of those victim impact statements. I certainly didn't go through every single one, just highlighting some of them, but doing so with purpose, because it is very clear to this court that Mr. Brooks has caused carnage, mayhem.
No, Wisconsin doesn't
It
have
has
that, babe.
resulted in many people suffering from PTSD, from mental and emotional trauma that will take a lifetime to recover from, and for some, perhaps, if at all.
Oh, he's already acted
You
a
have
fool
taken
twice.
away from
He's
these
been
individuals
removed.
future memories. They will never have birthdays with the 6 individuals who were killed. There will be no weddings. There will be no graduations. There will be none of the milestones that these families were looking forward to, whether it be for an innocent 8-year-old or an innocent 79-year-old. Frankly, Mr. Brooks, no one is safe from you. This community can only be safe if you are behind bars for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
The actions of Darrell Brooks,
Now, y'all, I see
Demand
17 people
punishment.
watching and I only got 11 likes.
the community is not safe
It's very
from your
upsetting.
violent and criminal conduct unless you are in custody. You left a path of destruction, chaos,
No,
death,
Jen, he's not.
injury, confusion, and panicked as you drove 7 or so blocks through the
I'll
Christmas
be right back,
parade.
you guys.
Never once
But I'll be
stopping
in chat.
or seemingly caring about the wake of carnage that you left. 4 of those blocks were turned into a scene that frankly is no different than a war zone.
Okay, basically she's going to, tell him that he can appeal and yada, yada, yada. But I feel like, well, we watched it too nonstop, Mom. You could have been in here with us. Let me just do it now for Sky Flash. Let me get a drink, but just in case, because it's kind of a high note. So please hold. Are you ready? All right, here we go. Toodaloo, motherfucker. There you go. All right. Now, and thank you so very much for the super sticker, I think, or super chat. I never can tell which one they are. I think it's a super chat. But either way, thank you so much. Yes, I was live nonstop, Mom. Of course I was. I went live twice today. This would be my 3rd time. I started this morning with George Washington Wagner IV. Then at 12:30 or 12:45, I was live with the Brooks trial. And now at 8:45, I was live again with both. I've been on it. All right. Now then, Let's go over to OHO. Wait, that's not it. OH, just OH. I don't know how to spell today. Yes, just OH. No upcoming. Here we go. This is what I want. Okay. So let me set the stage for y'all. Thank you. And 5, 6, 7, 8. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Hey, objection overruled. Well, nonstop, Mom. You can't listen. I know the YouTubes is a tough place, okay? Believe me. I've seen some things as well. But you know, the ward is a safe haven. And I wanted to answer Olner. Here's the deal about that. Yes, under ordinarily, that would not be allowed. Okay. And usually what happens is prior to the sentence being imposed, prior to the judge actually giving the sentence, right? Usually what the judge will do is instruct everybody in the courtroom that there are to be no outbursts, no nothing. That they, they want it to be quiet. Since she didn't do that, and I think she probably would have if Brooks hadn't had an outburst. I think she really wanted him to be in the room for it, and he just can't act right. Just absolutely cannot behave and conduct himself with any just a modicum of decorum, none. So, yes. Oh, thank you, objection overruled. I appreciate that. Appreciate that very much. Now then, over to the Ohios. So, let me tell y'all, if you weren't here this morning, what had happened. Okay. Hey, Seth, how's it going? All right. So, all the day, so Friday was no court because of Veterans Day. Then Monday, there was court. However, okay, this is the procedure. Before the state can rest, okay, what has to take place is, oh, thank you in 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you so much. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Guys are so nice to me. I appreciate that. All right. So, procedurally, what takes place is after the state rests, then what happens is there's a hearing outside of the presence of the jury. Okay. And this is where the prosecution and the defense and the judge decide what exhibits will actually be admitted into evidence, and then for the jury to take into deliberation. Oh gosh, no way, nonstop, Mom. It's too early for that for y'all. All right, so that's what typically happens, but because the number of pieces of evidence that or the number of exhibits and documents, etc., that they want to admit into evidence is substantial, this took an inordinate amount of time. So what ended up happening is they worked all day yesterday, and they broadcast it, and it was very tedious, but I learned some things because I did keep tabs on it. And what I learned is, and the reason why this is important is because I'll give you a very specific example. There was a BCI agent on the stand, okay, and she was asked to identify these documents. Well, the reason she was asked that is because this particular BCI agent was on the scene, and she was part of when they searched that that trailer, like a semi trailer, with all of the Wagner stuff in it. And she was one of those people, and she's the one that looked in the totes. Okay. So as part of that, um, oh, thank you so much. And that's really sweet of you guys. You guys are so nice to me. I really appreciate everything. I really do. So so she's asked to identify this packet of documents, right? It's not really a packet. It's like 5 or 6, 7, 10 papers, and they're paper clipped together. Well, when she was asked to identify those, she did, and they were marked as such and such, right? When it comes down to admitting them, the judge and the defense are looking at these documents, and while they are labeled deed, okay, there's other things mixed in with the deed. So there is the letter um, transferring the deed, and then there is the actual filing where you get the actual deed in your name, that part of it. Okay, so those two pieces of paper were respective to the deed of the property on Peterson. But the other documents that were in there had nothing to do with that. And so the judge and the defense is correct in this time on this. You can't just be saying, here's a stack of paperwork, it's the deed, when there's other papers in there that are not, have nothing to do with the deed. Okay, it has to be clear, and then the judge has to decide whether those are pertinent and whether they can even be admitted. Okay, so that's what they spent Monday doing, and they worked, bless their hearts, until like 8 o'clock last night Eastern time. And so then the judge set the um for them to finish up today at 8, well, to start at 8, and then the trial would resume. Now, this is a unique scenario because this typically does not happen. But because the trial has gone on for so long, it's such a lengthy trial that the judge is trying to, streamline the situation. So they're still not finished, and I don't know if they finished up this afternoon, because honestly, I was watching the end of Brooks, trying to figure out where we should start. And I forgot to write down the timestamp. It was in my brain and then it left. All right. So then, so what's happened is the state has not technically rested. Okay. But the defense has been allowed to start to present their case in chief. Okay. Although the state has not rested, they're not going to call anybody else. That was like part of the deal, but it could be a little problematic because it's kind of a procedural error, but I don't think it's not a big enough one to kind of get like, a new trial or anything. All right. So we're all sitting around waiting because we all know that the defense is going to call their first witness. And y'all, who did they call? None other than George Washington Wagner IV. And I even had to rewind it a little bit to make sure that's who they were going to call, and that's who they said. All right, so that's who they said. But then I see the bailiff, who has been the person in charge of that opting out paperwork. He's the one that goes and tells he brings brings them that form, and then he delivers it to the judge, and they either opt in or opt out. And at first I was a little bit panicky because I was like, wait a minute, like, hold the phone here. He isn't technically like a witness. He is the defendant. It's different. How is he allowed to opt out? Okay. Well, it doesn't matter because he didn't opt out. But I thought he might have. Yes, Jen. Yes. So I was thinking, I did not, but he did get the form, which shocked me because, again, he's not, even though he's taking the stand, he isn't actually a witness because it's his case. And I thought that was so bizarre, but he didn't opt out. So his lawyer took him through basically like the early years, being homeschooled, and then eventually he didn't want to do the schooling anymore, and but um Angela and Billy did not want him to get a GED. They wanted to get him his diploma. So Angela took the tests for George, which is how he has his diploma. And he talked about their other um he talked about the other crimes that they committed as a family, like you know stealing trailers off semis, gas, learning how to pick locks and all that stuff. Well, nonstop, mom, it's one thing for there to be, because that happened in this trial too. Remember, there was a scheduling conflict, and then the defense called a couple, 2, 3 witnesses. That's not that's not abnormal. But the fact of the matter is, it is different. It is out of the norm for the defense to begin to present their case in chief before the state has officially rested. But I do understand that there were delays in this trial, and they're basically trying to, streamline this whole thing. Okay, so then, um, and George is trying really hard on the stand to really distance himself from his family. I mean, he speaks about them really with disdain, especially his mom and Jake, to be quite honest. He has disdain for Billy, but not in the same way and not the same amount or level that he does for his father. But I ended the stream um, before, like right after they took their first break. We watched, like, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 minutes, maybe even an hour of that. But I had to have something to eat. Um, my tummy was eating a hole in my back. I was so hungry. I don't even know why, but I was. So anyways, I took a break because I was going to do the Brooks trial, but I didn't take a break from watching the Wagner trial. I was listening to it. And so I caught something right before they went to lunch, and I want you guys to hear it. And then obviously they're going to go to lunch. Then we're going to skip through and catch up and hear the evening testimony. I'm going to just speed him up a scotch at 125, just in the interest of time. Okay. All right. Did I add this to the stream? I sure did. Okay. So we're good to go. All right. Here we go.
MRDD.
MRDD, do you know what that stands for?
Not really.
Do you know the type of people that live there?
Basically, adults who are still children in their own brain.
Okay. Now, I think you told us that you quit your schooling that your mom was giving you around the age of 14.
Around there.
Okay. Did you get a diploma?
Yes.
You need to keep your voice up a little bit. Sorry, hold before you can. Thank you.
And I have to say, I found this interesting too, that the bailiff is adjusting it.
Yes.
All right. But you got a diploma, is that right?
Yes.
How did that work?
My mother didn't want me getting a GED like my father or her brother, so I ended up. She finished the schooling.
Your mother finished.
She done the test for it.
Okay, but you got the diploma.
Yes.
Now, around this age, was
You
your
guys
father-
can't hear?
Did he have like a real job outside the home?
Early teens or
Yeah.
before teens. Or
Okay, let's start when you were very young.
when I was young, he worked for my grandparents and went around buying horses, junk, cattle, whatever kind of livestock he could get.
Okay, and as you got older, did he do something else?
After the dog kennels burned, the last one, my father.
Can y'all hear okay? I just want to make sure before I keep going. It's low because it's low, babe. There's nothing I can do about it. I have it turned up all the way. See? It's just the way it is. I'm so sorry.
Started driving the truck.
I won't speed him up. I'll slow him
He
down
went
again.
to CDL, and a friend of his hired him to drive one of his trucks.
All right, and what type of truck driving did he do?
He hauled containers for BT&T out of Columbus.
And did you notice any change?
All right, so let me, I'm going to I think he might be. But let me try this again. Let me share the screen again. Maybe it's a little bad. Maybe, I don't know. So I just want to, because I want you guys to be able to hear this. Let me add this to the stream. All right.
My father has a habit of wanting to be identical to whoever he takes as a father figure at the time.
What do you mean by that?
He has daddy issues.
Okay. And so when he started driving truck, did you?
How
notice
about now,
changes?
you guys?
What did you notice?
The guy he was driving with took multiple different things to stay awake, and my father couldn't keep up with him, so he started doing the same thing.
What do you mean he started doing the same thing?
He would take what the guy he was driving with was taking.
Like taking,
Multiple handfuls of Adipex and pain pills.
If you don't know what Adipex is, it's a diet pill. It's similar to Fen-Phen.
did you ever see your dad take any pills?
Yes,
How would you see that?
because usually before he would leave, he would take a handful.
And did you notice any changes in his behavior?
It made him very irritable, hard to be around.
Did that cause any problems in your relationship with him?
A lot.
Explain that if you can.
Didn't matter the least. My father is hard of hearing, and when he's not paying attention, you gotta holler at him, and he would, instead of thinking you were just trying to get his attention, he'd think you were yelling at him, and it would end up in an argument or a fight.
How would you describe your relationship with him once he started driving truck and taking these pills?
Not very well.
Can you give us some examples?
We quit doing stuff together, and I didn't spend a lot of time with him because he was always irritable.
Did you ever have any fights with him?
4 that I can remember in my life.
All right. Do you remember the first one?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
I was 16, I believe.
All right, what happened?
My brother ran me over with my own truck when he was trying to hook up a trailer, and I was yelling at my brother, and for some reason my father went off on me.
All right, you said your brother ran you over. Was that on purpose or an accident?
He was not paying attention.
Were you injured?
Not really, just a little black and blue.
All right, and so what happened?
My father thought I was just yelling at my brother for no reason and pushed me up against my truck and dared me to hit him.
Okay, and you were 16?
Yes.
And so what happened?
I was just fed up with it, so I hit him.
What do you mean you hit him?
I hauled off and hit him.
With your fist?
Yes.
And what happened then?
He hit the ground, and he got back up, and we went into a fist fight.
And how long did that last?
A few minutes till my mother broke it up.
How did she break it?
I don't remember exactly. I just remember her screaming and yelling at both of us.
And so, did that first fist fight affect your relationship with your dad?
We didn't speak for a few weeks after that.
And so.
Hold
were
on.
there
I think the
other
part I want you
instances,
guys to
other
hear is
times
after
when you
this,
got
because
into a
we
fight
heard
with
this
your
this
dad?
morning. I remember
Three
this part.
more I remember. 2
All
more
right,
fist
hold on.
fights and one that was just like a massive verbal argument.
All right, but when was the next incident that you can?
The next one would have been a verbal argument
All right, where did that take place?
on Bethel Hill.
I think it's
All right,
like
what
right
were the
about here.
Through nothing ended up going right. They mixed the whole music system up, and
But did you get married?
yes,
Was it a happy event
yes,
in spite of all these problems?
yes.
And who was the minister or the preacher that married you?
Kelly Sundereski.
And why him?
You know,
I
hang
prefer
on
him
a
over my
second.
grandmother's preacher.
I don't want to talk over him too much, but he's about to go into him and Tabitha's marriage. And I'm going to give you a trigger warning because he does talk about an incident with Tabitha where she attempted self-harm. Okay. And you know, Jen, I have mixed feelings about him as well, because on the one hand, I don't think that anybody would argue that this family was dysfunctional AF, right? I mean, even George would agree to that. Jake certainly has said that, has as much. Beth Ann, who is Jake's ex-wife, said the same thing. Tabitha has said the same thing. Even Angela's own brother, Chris Newcomb, said the same thing, that they're dysfunctional. And I get that. But where I'm really struggling with George is those wiretaps, and not even the ones where he's arguing and him and Jake are fighting. It's actually the ones with between him and his mother about Alaska. And, he's asking like follow-up questions about the home. And, he's saying, he talks about the deer jerky and maybe that could be a business for them, and, that kind of thing. And the other thing is if you wanted to distance yourself from your family, right? And you've always wanted to live in Alaska because they had gone there for a vacation way earlier than, like, I want to say like 2000, I don't know, not 10, 12, somewhere in that vicinity. Um, and you fell in love with the place. Why'd you move back? Why did you come back? You could have stayed in Alaska. You didn't have to come back to Ohio with your family. I mean, he was he was a he was a trucker. It's not like his income came from running that farm. So there is something. I can't quite put my finger on it. I'm gonna be quiet and let y'all listen because
How did
I
you know
think
that?
now that the sound is better, I'm gonna make it at
He was a preacher
125.
there.
Explain how that works.
I started going to the church over there when my dad stopped at the yard sale when I was a kid.
All right, I'll
And,
be
found
right
the
back, but
church
I'm
and
in
invited my father
chat.
to church.
Okay, and where was this church?
Remember,
In Minford, okay. And so explain, how old were you about then?
11 or 12.
All right, and so your father met this minister from this church in Minford.
Yes.
Was that Kelly or somebody else?
The founder of the church.
Okay,
I don't know his first name, but I call him Brother King.
and so what happened after your dad met?
We started going to church there,
And you were how old again, I'm sorry?
11 or 12.
And how often would you go to church?
Usually every Sunday, sometimes on Wednesday, but usually every Sunday.
Was it the whole family?
Yes.
And how long did that go on?
Till 07, till 2007.
All right, so you and Tabby decided to get married?
Yes.
You actually got married?
Yes.
Explain you and Tabby after that.
After that, it was really no different. I got her a job with my grandmother. She refused to get a driver's license, so it was the only place I could get her a job that she could go without a driver's license.
And what did she do?
She worked at the group home where her mother used to work,
And where were you guys living?
on Bethel Hill.
So she moved in with you up at
Yes.
Bethel Hill? And had she lived with you periodically up there?
Yes. Technically, she's been living with me since 2011.
And did Tabby have any medical or other issues?
She had really bad fits.
What do you mean?
She would freak out and yell and scream. And it started when she was a kid, when I first noticed them. But
And so describe the situation.
as a child, she would just rock back and forth and cry on average 2 or 3 times a week.
And so what would you do?
At that point in time,
Yeah,
just try and calm her down.
how would you do that?
Usually if I just give her a hug, she'd calm down, but that was as a child.
Okay, and how about as you got older?
It didn't work when we got back together.
Why not?
She progressed to yelling, screaming, throwing things.
And do you know if she ever had a diagnosis?
I don't know what it really was.
Do you know if she was ever on any medication?
She's supposed to be.
Did she take her medication?
No.
How did that affect your relationship?
We had a lot of really good days until she had her fits.
What would happen then?
She would yell and scream and throw stuff and bit me many a times.
So you continued on with the relationship?
Yes,
And when you married her, you knew about this, right?
yes.
So why did you marry her?
Because it's not technically her fault. She's had a rough life.
She told you about what had happened when she was younger?
Yes. Not just her, but her sisters and her mother came out of her mouth. So
But you decided to marry her anyway?
yes.
And so why did you marry her? Do you know all this?
I felt bad for her, and we've known each other our whole life, and I thought that I could help her.
And so you decided to have a family, is that right?
Yes.
Explain that.
We tried for over a year to have our son,
Okay,
and finally she got pregnant with him.
how did that make you feel?
Best moment of my life.
And so you had a son, right?
Yes.
Between the time that you found out Tabby was pregnant and you had your son, how was your relationship with that?
It was up and down.
What do you mean by that?
A few months in, from the time that she got pregnant, we were in Michigan, or no, sorry, the first time, I was cutting firewood when she called and said the doctor diagnosed her with chlamydia.
Right, and what was that?
The doctor tried explaining it can lay dormant for years, and like an idiot, I believe this.
All right, and so did you talk to Abby about this?
She went with the doctor's statement.
Okay, you stayed with her?
Yes, they prescribed her some kind of antibiotics and ended up, she got rid of it.
Okay, and this is while she was pregnant?
Yes.
All right, and then did anything else happen before your son was born?
A couple months before he was born, we were in Dundee, Michigan, and she ended up getting another call from the doctor saying she had it again.
And so what was your reaction to that?
I might have been dumb for the first time, but not the second.
What do you mean by that?
Not going to lay dormant after his son been gone, so she ended up telling me she was screwing her best friend's dad.
And so what was your reaction?
I mean, it's kind of heartbreaking in a way, but she swore that the baby was mine, and we went on with it.
And do you remember when your son was born?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
When he was born, I ended up getting a DNA test to make sure he was mine. But while we were in the hospital, it was driving me nuts with everything that she had done, and I tried to leave her at that point.
What do you mean you tried to?
She begged and cried and pleaded for me not to leave her, saying she couldn't raise a kid on her own.
So what did you do?
I ended up caving and stayed with her.
And your son was born, right?
Yes.
What did you think of that?
It was nice to have my son, but it's not nice to not know if he's yours or not, so
Did that cause any problems in your relationship?
it's always in the back of your head. It doesn't leave.
But you had a DNA test?
Yes.
And your son is yours?
Yes.
And so what happened after your son was born? Where did you live?
I still lived on Bethel.
With your parents?
Yes.
And Tabby moved in?
Yes.
Or was living there at the time?
Yes.
And so around this time, were you working?
For myself, yes, at that point.
All right. Now, you talked earlier about your education. You stopped when you were about 14. Right?
Yes.
And then your mom did some tests and you got a diploma, right?
Yes.
Did you get any education after that? Or
I
training?
went to school to be a diesel mechanic.
Okay, explain that.
It's just like a year program. Afterwards, they give you your CDL with it, so you can be a truck driver if you want.
All right. And where did you
Okay, so I just want to interject really quickly. This makes no sense from a medical standpoint. If one partner has an STD and the other partner is being spoken to about the STD by the doctor, typically they will treat both people. It would do no good to treat one partner and not the other, especially when you know that they were trying to have a baby, which means they were, having, unprotected relations. And so that's problematic for me. Also, his description of their marriage, which I'm not surprised about, but it is, and I don't know if I said this, but hi, Tony. Good to see you, babe. His interpretation and his description of their relationship is vastly different. Like the only thing they agree on is the fact that they were married and that Bovine is their son's name. That's it. Everything else is different. And I find it very difficult to believe that Tabitha did not want to get a driver's license, but it's possible. It's just the way that he speaks about her is not great. And
do that?
The program's at Scioto County's Technical Career Center, but they actually do the training at Glockner's.
All right. And did your brother do that with you?
Yes.
You guys go at the same time?
Yes.
All right. And how did you
yeah,
get that?
nonstop, Mom. Like,
I
what would
enjoyed
be
it.
the point then?
And so once you
This
got
is-
that, did you complete the coursework?
I don't know. I just have a hard time
Took a year.
believing this.
And were you working while you were in school?
No.
Okay. Did you get a job after you got your training?
Yes.
And what did you do?
I went to Bennett's Collision.
Bennett's Collision?
Yes.
And what did you do there?
Sax trucking, it's the same company.
Okay. What did you do there?
I was a mechanic there.
And for how long were you a mechanic there?
6 months, I think.
All right. Did
Something
you
like
enjoy that?
Yes. Other than being on call overtime.
All right. Explain that.
Once I got called out in the middle of the night after a 16-hour day just to adjust a seat for a driver.
Okay. So
It got annoying.
it got it. Did you get a job after that?
Yes.
What kind of job? Did you do?
I drove for Strickland Logging for a little while. After that, I drove for Thomason Trucking for a little while, which is in Piketon here. And then
This
after,
is not really
I worked for
pertinent.
Crop Production for a little while.
We know
and
you
then I
worked.
started hauling cattle. And I paid half.
Did your mother actually pay the bills, or did you pay the bills, or how did that work?
We paid the bills, but it was looked at as she didn't do much else, so she can do the paperwork of sending them in.
Would you give her cash? Would you give her your credit
Cash.
card? How did that work?
Usually it was cash. If she was ordering stuff for the kids, she had the credit card to use.
If she had your credit card?
Yes.
All right, and she had permission to use it?
Yes,
This is
anything my kid
important.
needed, she had permission to use it. She had my debit card number too. If I was on the road, my kid wanted something, it was there.
Would you actually review the bills that were sent as far as the credit card or anything?
No.
So how would that get paid?
She'd mail them in.
You'd give her the cash?
Yeah.
She'd take care of the payment?
Yes.
The payment.
Okay, so let me tell you why this is important. This particular piece of testimony is important because if you guys remember back to when the forensic accountant testified, okay, the purchase of the cell scrambler thingy that was to make it where you couldn't, make any calls from a cell phone. That purchase was made on George Washington Wagner IV's credit card. Okay. But there was also a fraud claim made on that purchase. And he just said that he didn't check the bills. So if his mother told him that the credit card bill was due and it was X amount of dollars, he gave her the money without looking at the credit card bill. So how then was a fraud claim generated on that scrambler? That's going to be a problem, and I hope the jury remembers that, like your girl here did.
And how long did this go on?
Pretty much all the time we lived together.
Did you find this to be unusual in any way?
Not really. It's how I've always done it.
And it's not that unusual. Yeah, their finances being tied together.
When you were living over on Peterson, you put your,
Starting there or
yeah, started,
mixture, when I was home, a mixture between me and my mom and Tabby.
all right? And who had, would you say, primary responsibility?
Who took care of him the most?
Yeah.
Me and my mother.
What about Tabby?
When she was around somebody else. She had a habit of mine always getting hurt when he was around her.
What do you mean by that?
She'd bring him out of the bathroom and give him a bath. He'd have a knot on his head, or she shoved his hand in some hot vegetables once, and another time she might have tried to catch him, but I think she pushed him off the picnic table, is what it looked like to me.
Do you think she was abusing him?
Define that.
Well, do you think she was purposely harming him?
I can't say on any of them other than the vegetables, and she did that on purpose.
What happened then?
He kept trying to reach for him, and she shoved his hand in them when they were too hot and held it there until it burned him.
Were you there?
No, that's just what she said she did.
So what was your reaction?
Didn't trust her to make sure he didn't get hurt. Even her own mother said she couldn't handle raising a child.
And what was your mother's responsibility with respect to Ryan and so forth?
Like when I was gone,
Yeah, well, let's start when you were there.
when I was there, sometimes he'd stay with her at night, sometimes he'd stay with me, just depending on who he went with that night.
Would she take care of Ryan if you were out doing something else?
Yeah, while I was gone, while I was feeding or gone or at work or something, she watched him.
Was that kind of her job or described?
Kind of, like an in-home babysitter.
And did you have any problem with that?
Not really.
So let's talk about.
Yeah, let's talk about that real quick. So you're telling me this is the woman who raised you. This is the woman who you have said thought she was better than everybody else. Basically, you really have a lot of disdain for your mother, but you did not have a problem with her raising your child. Now, this is the other odd part that obviously the defense is not going to bring up, but I'm very curious how this is going to go on cross-exam, because if I were cross-examining him, I would ask this. She was more than just an in-home babysitter. Remember what the testimony was. I believe Tabitha testified to this, and Beth Ann also testified to this, that Bullvine called Angela Wagner mom. So she was more than just an in-home babysitter.
The inside of the house.
You got a mudroom, a living room. You got the kitchen.
I don't even
bathroom,
understand what the point of this
bedroom,
questioning
kids'
is.
toy room down.
Do as a result of or after that.
After that, we got divorced.
How did you decide to get divorced? What did you do?
I got an attorney. I offered to buy Tabby one. She said that she
Right.
didn't want one, that she didn't need it, that she was leaving behind
Right,
me.
Jen, right.
And after we went to my attorney and she looked over all the paperwork, we had to do a parenting class thing.
Okay, slow down. Ask a couple questions. Do you remember the name of your attorney?
Barbara Moore,
The woman who testified here?
Yes.
All right, and how did you find Barbara Moore as your attorney?
don't remember exactly, but I think it was Bernie's wife that recommended her.
Okay,
I
so-
believe that witness opted out.
I set up an appointment to talk with her.
And do you remember where her office was?
Yeah,
Yes,
you're not offending anybody, Corky, at all.
Did you go to her
It's
office?
it's
And did you explain what you wanted?
Yes.
So what did you do?
I done that. She said she'd draw the paperwork, and when she did, she called me and I brought Tabby in so she could look over it.
And did you and Tabby have to do anything as part of the
I-
divorce process?
Parenting class.
I highly doubt that there's going to be
Some
a
kind of class to help
bovine
children cope with parents that are separated.
bicycle license
do
plate
those
at
classes?
Walmart.
Yes.
Both of you?
Yes.
How do you know that she did?
She sat right directly beside me. It was one of our remarks from our instructor that we were the only couple that sat together.
And did you go to the classes together?
Yes, I went and picked her up every night.
And how many times did you have to go?
I think twice.
And so
You
went
picked
to
her
the
up every
court-
night, twice.
All right. And then did
What
you
a
go back to the
hero.
lawyer at that point?
I don't think so. I think after that, we just had a court hearing.
Okay. And so you went to court?
Yes.
And you were there with your attorney?
Yes.
Did Tabby show up?
I drove her to court. I went and picked her up.
You picked her up and drove her to court?
Yes. Everything to do with the attorney, the parenting, and court, I went and picked her up.
How were you guys, what was your relationship like at that point?
Normal. She come to see mine. She spent Thanksgiving with us. She come for Christmas.
All right, so you were friendly towards each other?
Yes.
Which is interesting
want
because
her
that's
to
not
go
what
to
she
court?
says at all. Remember, she went a long period of time without being
She
able to see
ended
him.
up having supervised visits, and she could come visit in as long as I was present
And why did you have supervised visits?
because of her fits and because of the fact of everything that happened to her as a child that she thought was normal for all children to have to go through.
You're gonna have to explain that just a little bit.
Yeah, you're really going to have
She
to.
has like massive blow up fits.
Here's the thing. I highly doubt that Tabitha thought that what she experienced as a child was normal and that every child should go through it. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I just remembered. Here's another trigger warning because he's going to talk about just briefly her childhood a little bit, what she told him. So this is your trigger warning. I can't remember exactly where it's at, but it's in this part. So
And she doesn't really pay attention to what she's doing.
brace
She gets really violent
yourself.
When she has these fits
Right? And you mentioned something, you know where she was living at this point.
with her mother and her stepfather.
And did you want Vine in that environment?
No.
Why not?
Because of everything that her mother had
Tony.
happened to Tabby and her sisters.
I don't want you to go into too much detail, but tell the jury what you mean.
As a child, my ex-wife and her sisters, from the time they were between 7 and 9 years old, her mother would hold him down for her stepfather.
So there was sexual abuse?
Yes.
And you knew about it?
Yes.
And is that why you didn't want Vine over?
Yes.
Is that why you wanted supervised visits?
Yes.
With Tabby?
Yes.
And so you got divorced?
Yes.
And did you ever live together again?
No, not after that.
Was she involved in Vine's life after?
She come to see him many times.
At your house?
Yes.
And where was that?
Peterson,
Would she come by herself?
mostly. A couple of times she tried to bring her sisters. I think once her boyfriend.
Were you okay with that?
No.
Why not?
Because
I didn't want her
I
boyfriend knew she'd been cheating with us
kind
the
of
whole time
think he
around my
might.
kid. And I
He-
didn't want her sisters because her sisters were the same opinion as everybody else that it's life, kid will get over it.
Were you concerned about Vine's safety?
Yes.
Did Tabby ever take you back to court to change your arraignment?
Right before I got arrested.
Explain that.
I got a letter saying that she was taking me back to court
Now, you got arrested in November, right?
Yes.
And
of
so-
2018.
I'm sorry,
Of 2018.
of 2018. When did you get that letter?
A couple months prior, I think.
Were you able to go to court?
No, my hearing with her was 3 weeks after I got arrested.
So once you got arrested, that was it?
Yeah.
It's just afternoon. I don't know if you want to take a break at this time.
Well, if this is a good time,
It
to
is.
break the questioning on it.
Great. Let me
We will
skip.
take our lunch in recess.
Okie dokie.
And,
Your Honor, I appreciate that.
and we'll be in recess until 10 after.
Okay.
And other members of my family, distant family,
Like who?
my uncle Chris, my cousin Katie.
Are you your Uncle Chris? That's your Chris Newcomb, who
Yes,
texted. And why did you think your family was like his?
we all lived pretty much the same way.
What do you mean by that?
I lived around my family. My uncle lived with his family. My aunt lived with her family. My cousin lived with her family.
All right. When you say your aunt,
My aunt Robin,
all right, where does she live?
Flying W,
All right. And how old is she about?
almost 60, I think.
All right. And you said your cousin?
Yes, my cousin Katie,
Your cousin Katie, who testified?
yes,
Where does she live?
Athens,
Do you know who she lives with?
her mom and dad.
All right. Anybody else that you know?
My uncle Chris,
Your uncle, you just said, who does he live with?
he lives with his mother and grandmother.
And anybody else?
Off the top of my head, I think that's it.
Is he married?
He's
You're right,
his
Jen.
fiance,
You're absolutely right.
Randy Hughes.
Right. She testified.
It's very
Do they
possible
live together?
Yes,
that they will call
Anybody else
her
that you
mother.
know?
Although,
I had a friend of mine in Virginia that lived with his family for until he was in his early 20s.
All right. And what was his name?
James.
Do you know his last name?
no, we don't know his last name and we don't care. Oh, wait, wrong one. You're right. About both you and Tony are right. But here's the thing about that. The only thing that they would really be able to do with Tabitha's mom is impeach her testimony with respect of how their family dynamics were. And the truth is, it would be very dicey for the defense to call Tabitha's mother because remember, it is Tabitha's mom that Hannah Roden was having the conversation with about Sophia, about custody, about Tabitha's the one that said, I'll help you to get an attorney so that and those Facebook message exchanges allegedly were the catalyst for this whole situation. So, although what's interesting about that is what we learned from Jake's testimony, because we do have the 10-minute clip, is that isn't what the catalyst was. In fact, he hardly mentions from what we heard. I don't obviously know what the rest of it entailed, but it was more about the men that the guys that had dated, and that Jake didn't think they were good guys, and he worried about Sophia's safety. I
Roden,
just find it
That's spelled
interesting.
with T?
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about the road. Who are the roads?
friend of mine.
And how did you become friends?
Started out, they leased our farm to deer hunt on.
All right. And who is that?
James Roden and his father, Rick Roden.
All right. And was there another family member?
Later on,
And who was that?
James's mother, Edie.
And so describe how you got to know them and what they did.
They started hunting up there in '05, I believe. And we just started hunting together, eventually became friends.
And was James your age, older, younger?
I think he's 2 years older than me.
And do you know his father's name?
Yes, Rick Roden. Rick Roden,
Rick. And did you develop a relationship with Rick and James?
yes.
Tell us about that.
James became a really close friend of mine, and I kind of looked at Rick as a second father figure.
Why do you say Rick was a second father?
He always gave me a lot of advice growing up.
And was that advice different than what you'd received earlier?
Yes.
Explain that.
He basically told me not to continue down the road I was going, doing the stuff that my father did.
And did you take that advice to heart?
It took a long time to get it completely out of my system, but yes.
When did you start taking his advice to heart?
Around the time
2017.
that me and Tabby got married.
Oh.
And you talked earlier about when you and Tabby got married, and you liked to drink and have a good time down at Big Bear Lake, right?
Yes.
Once your son was born, did that change?
I gave all my partying days up.
Well, ain't you a saint?
Did you ever visit the Rodens in Virginia?
Yes, multiple
Tony.
times.
Explain it.
They would
Right
hunt up here
before
with me,
my
and I'd be down there
arrest.
hunting fish with them.
Like literally 12
There was
hours
a point in
prior.
time when your friend James got married.
Yes.
Explain that.
He got married a little bit after I did the same year.
Okay. Did you attend his wedding?
Yes,
Okay. Where was that?
Virginia.
And what time of year was that?
His wife decided to have their wedding opening day of deer season.
how did that make you feel?
I've never missed deer season in my life except for that.
So you went to a good.
Yes.
Now, you just mentioned deer season. Let's talk about that for a minute. Tell us about
Tony,
deer
you're
hunting
killing
and-
me tonight, babe.
how that works.
I'm more of a deer addict.
A deer hat.
Yes.
Tell the jury what that means to
I
you.
live, eat, breathe, and sleep deer.
Well,
Now, when you lived on Bethel
I
Hill,
think
was that
they
a good
might
deer
call,
hunting
but
area?
it would be,
One of the best I've
it's
ever
going to
been on,
be, they're taking a
Did
chance.
you
They're rolling
tell us
some
about how
dice,
you
Jen. I
drove
got to
deer,
say,
how you
they're rolling
prepared,
dice
what you
right
did?
now. So what's
How far
Tabitha's
back?
mom going to do? Let's
start
be
at the beginning.
honest.
In the beginning, I just hunted at night with my father
Okay,
until I met Rick and James.
all right, and explain.
Then I started hunting like them during the daylight hours and done that for quite a few years.
All right, what would be a typical hunting day for you?
2-3 hours before the sun came up till 2 or 3 after it went down.
And would you have deer stands? Would you hunt by yourself? Explain how it works.
Depending on who was hunting up there, depending on who got what stand. But I would just sit
I'm
and
going
stand all
to
day.
push pause right here and probably
Explain what
skip
a deer
forward a
stand
little bit. When you're on trial for the unaliving of 8 people, all right. Now, granted, Jake testified that George never pulled the trigger. It's probably not a good idea to ask a bunch of questions about hunting. Because actually what it shows, see, remember, the testimony from Jake, if I'm remembering correctly, was that George was the one who was supposed to uh, initially ambush Chris Sr., and he froze. And then Jake was going to take the shot, but he couldn't see around the homemade oil filter silencer on the pew pew, right? And so then Billy had to improvise, and that's how it went. But you're talking about this guy being a hunter, and it's just there's a disconnect. So you might this might be a you know yeah. I just don't. I thought, yeah, Tony, for reals. This is not probably not a good line of question. And skip forward a little bit. See what he's saying now.
You described earlier the sleeping arrangements when you lived at Peterson, right?
Yes.
Um, where did Vine want to sleep?
Depending on what mood he was in.
Okay, what were the options then? What were his habits?
Sometimes he'd sleep upstairs in my mom's room. Sometimes he'd sleep in mine. Sometimes he'd do half and half.
I will say he did
Now,
give
inside
his
your
dad
bedroom
Billy
there
a
at Peterson,
compliment.
Did you have a
Billy
television?
really loved his grandchildren,
Did
apparently.
you ever have a radio?
I
And
had
even
a
when they
Bluetooth
were
external
living
speaker for my
apart,
phone.
Is that something you would
Billy
use frequently? or
Billy
the
would
hell?
go over
Almost
to the
every
house to see the grandkids. So, what is the point of this, your counselor? Why do we need to hear about George's Bluetooth habits? Are you trying to say that all of the planning for this took place and due to George's
Talk
location,
about Jake and Hannah
bedroom
for a minute.
location, he couldn't have possibly overheard any of it?
How would you describe your relationship when they first met? First started going?
When they first started dating or first met,
First started dating?
I don't know if I can really put a date when they first started dating because it kind of just like, it just started out as Hannah hanging out at the house and she pretty much just said he's mine.
Okay. Did you think they had a good
Yeah,
relationship?
I'm not surprised
Starting
that
out,
he's
I
a
could say
hunter
it
or
was kinda
anything
good.
like that. It's just probably not a good idea to
you
bring
enjoy
up
each other?
stories about hunting
Did you like
when
having
you're on
Hannah?
trial for unaliving
Why is that?
humans.
She was like a baby sister to me.
What was her relationship with your father?
Her and dad was always goofing off with each other.
How about Hannah and your mother?
My mother and Hannah used to do a lot of stuff together. They bake all the time, cook all the time. She followed her around like a lovesick puppy dog, basically.
You thought they had a good relationship?
Yes.
Did you ever know of a time when the relationship soured in any way?
Between my mom and Hannah,
Yes.
not really.
What about between her and Jake?
Got to where they fought and argued a lot.
Did there come a time when they separated?
Yes.
Explain what you know about that.
Not much. I was in Kansas when they, I can't remember if they called me or texted me and said that they split up.
Did that surprise you?
Yes and no.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, for
My
real.
brother
What
and
do you
Hannah
mean by
they're
that?
like in dark to each other.
What do you mean?
And I didn't think she'd ever leave him, but they also didn't get along because Hannah wanted to do her things and Jake didn't want her to.
What kind of things did Hannah want to do?
Hang out with her friends, do normal teenage stuff. She kind of missed out on being a teenager when she got with Jake.
Would you describe yourself as a religious person?
Not yes and no.
Okay, explain.
I just don't look at things like most religious people do.
Okay, how do you look at that?
I believe there's a God, but I just don't believe he intercedes in anything.
You read the Bible or not?
Yes.
How would you describe Jake's religious view?
I would describe my brother as a religious fanatic
Why do you say that?
because his whole life, that's all he's ever done is point out people's flaws and try and save people's souls and scream that they're going to hell if they don't listen to him.
Except for Beth
What
Ann
about your
says
mother?
the
Do you
exact
discuss
opposite.
that with her?
My brother learned it from her.
Huh. Interesting.
When you were growing up with Jake, did he ever get you in trouble?
Listen, give that
Anytime.
person in the coughing a
Me and my uncle
Ricola.
went fishing or something when we were like really young before we got our driver's license and stuff. We had certain rules we weren't allowed to do. So for instance, we weren't allowed to cut around the road to the farm. So we would do it anyway. And my brother would instantly say we went around the road.
Okay. And did that cause you problems?
Usually it gets a four-wheeler taken. Didn't help much, but
Now, before you got your driver's license, was there any time that your mom and dad, this is over on Bethel Hill now, was there any time your mom and dad left you and Jake alone on the farm?
many,
Explain that.
every month for 2.5, 3 years probably, they went to Florida.
And what was your understanding of why they were going to Florida?
They were running pills back and forth from Florida.
What do you mean running pills?
They would go to the doctor down there, you get an x-ray and they give you scripts for pain pills.
Were you have a present for you?
At the doctor's office,
No, on these trips to Florida.
one vacation I was there when they went and done that while me and my brother was on the beach.
And but you were saying that there were times they left you behind on Bethel Hill and they went and did.
I was only present for one of these runs out 2.5, 3 years.
Did they ever tell you what they did in Florida?
Yes.
And how old were you about when this was going on?
Started when I was like 16, I think, 15 or 16 years old.
And what was it like to be there on the farm, just you and Jake, without your mom and dad?
I enjoyed it. I just spent the time hunting and fishing.
When you came back, were there ever any arguments or problems that the parents had to resolve?
2 different occasions.
Explain.
One occasion, my brother had left and went to Samantha Frederick's house, and my parents found out about it. He wasn't supposed to leave the farm while they were gone.
Right, so what happened?
I got the blame for it because I didn't keep him home.
Right, was there another instance?
The other instance, they were in Florida, and we weren't supposed to have anybody over. at
All
the
right,
farm while they were gone,
Corky.
and
Sweet
Jake brought
dreams,
Chris
babe.
Jr., Hannah,
We'll be
and,
back
one
tomorrow.
of Hannah's friends over.
Okay, and did your parents find out about that?
Yes,
What happened?
they blamed me for him bringing them over.
How did that make you feel?
I'm not
part
trying to
of-
get in the blame for something.
It's part of being the oldest. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. I was responsible for my sister too.
If you had to describe your brother Jake, how would
But
you
my
describe
parents would punish both of us.
Over opinionated, rude, bigoted, selfish.
Wow.
I'd say he's selfish, greedy, a little bit. I'd say he's a little jealous.
And what about your mom?
I would describe my mother as over opinionated, thinks she's better than everybody, and manipulative. Really,
What do you mean by that?
she tries to manipulate people.
In what way?
I can use myself later, years after my son was born. She started out when I wouldn't stay home at night or stuff like that. She started trying to use my kid to get me to stay home,
In what way?
telling my kid that I was choosing women or deer hunting over him.
How did that make you feel?
She's not something you should be telling a 3-year-old.
I
You
don't
had
think
arguments
so.
with her?
I don't believe that.
What kind of, describe the argument?
They usually just started out me telling her it wasn't her business, me telling him that, and it would end up her yelling at me and me cussing her, and then I'd get mad and leave.
And how would you describe your father?
At what point in time?
Well, let's say.
Let me
when you were
push
growing up.
pause right here.
As a young child before you
Yeah.
started driving truck?
All right, let me just say this. My parents were strict. They didn't play. All right? And even when I was an adult, and I'm talking about like 18, not mentally grown up, but legally I was an adult. And you guys know that I had my kids young. I had my first one at 18, and 10 months later I had my second son, and then 2 years after that I had my daughter, and then 7 years I think after that I had my youngest daughter. And my I wouldn't did I ever smart off to my parents? Absolutely. But I will tell you this, it was few and far between. And because there were definite consequences and repercussions for it. And I the way that George is trying to paint Billy and especially Angela, how much fear can you have of somebody that you cuss out and tell them it's none of your business when it comes to your child? How much manipulation and control does that person actually have over you? Do you know what I mean? Hey, I've learned a lot. Good to see ya. It's been a minute, babe. Oh, crap.
Not much. I was in Kansas when a 2007 Chevy 2500
Oh, we got too
went
far.
with her.
Give me a for instance.
When I came back from Alaska, she was trying to get me on with her. Not much. I was in Kansas when
What the frack?
And on the other side of the road here, what,
If it's something that it's
Bruh.
to you?
I live, eat, breathe, and sleep.
Oh my God.
Day of deer season. Starts the last Saturday in September and runs till the first week of,
All cows with your family.
yes.
Right. And that, did you have any other jobs at that time?
if it's something that it's, I'm not sure. What is you're asking him now? How do you modify your
When
question?
your dad was teaching you how to steal fuel and whatnot.
Well,
what did
we've
he teach
missed
you
it.
about that?
You don't mess with an individual, only multi-billion-dollar companies and corporations.
And did you later come to a different opinion?
Yes,
Was that as a result of what Mr. Roden taught you?
some of it, yes.
I mean, the part about the religious fanatic that I find so odd is
I want
because
to show you some more photographs.
Beth Ann
George.
says
Well,
it
these
was
are
the
state exhibits that have
antithesis.
already
She
been
didn't
identified.
feel that he was religious at
This is
all,
a
that it was
purple
like a
R.
front, basically.
Do you recognize that?
Yes, it's Thornwell Peterson.
Okay, and the jury's already seen this, but what color is the house?
Red.
Okay. And looking at this photo
Oh.
to the left, what is this?
Well,
item?
good job,
The
George.
newborn.
Knows his colors.
And directly over here on the other side of the house,
The old barn.
and on the other side of the road here, what's that?
Eventually would have been the garage
All right, is this what you moved?
from Bethel, yes.
Okay. And there's an item right here near the house, what's that?
That is the hunting cabin that moved,
Moved from, all
Bethel.
right, why did you move that?
It was sentimental to me
In what way?
because Rick and James and me built it.
Built it on Bethel Hill?
Yes,
And then you moved it down here to Peterson?
yes.
And pointing out this field area near the house, did that have any significance when you were looking over there?
It was one of the hog pastures.
And did your property kind of go up the hill?
Yes,
And then you had property on this side of the road?
yes. I believe 14 acres on that side.
And what's the point of this?
Speaking of the new barn, showing you our
Exactly, Tony. Exactly. Like, I don't know. This,
two
I don't.
previously remarked as a state exhibit. Do you recognize this?
Yes, it's the new barn.
That's the new barn. All right, and RR3, what's that?
The inside of the new barn.
I just feel
And how
like
did you decide to, or who decided how to build this barn or the design of the barn?
It was my mother that wanted the barn, but the barn's an exact replica of the one that was on Bethel.
All right, and what was the purpose of that again?
She wanted her hog
Sorry,
for her pigs.
for her pig. And showing you RR5, what is that?
The center aisleway of the new barn.
All right, and this is after it's completed?
Yes.
All right, and what kind of flooring or ground did you have?
It started out with dirt until it was covered in sawdust.
Covered in salt?
Yes.
Why would it be covered in salt?
It's easy to clean. You scoop it up, clean it out. The stalls, the center floor was all covered in it.
I don't understand the point of this questioning. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit.
Probably 6 foot in height.
All right, was it heavy?
Yes.
What was it made of?
Steel.
And did there come a point in time when you moved that from Bethel Hill to Peters?
Yes.
How did that happen?
We ended up loading it onto a trailer and hauling it to Peterson, then putting it in the mudroom at Peterson.
And what was it used for there, Peterson?
It's where we kept the majority of our firearms.
Right, did you keep anything else in it?
My bows, any kind of legal documents, titles, money, whatever else was needed, kept in a safe.
And who had the combination to the safe, or was it a combination?
Yes.
Who had the combination?
My father, myself, and my brother.
Did your mother have it?
She had it at one point. I don't know if she remembered it or not, but
All right. And you said you kept money,
yes,
I mean cash money.
yes.
Typically, how much cash money would be in the safe?
Between 5 and 20,000.
And what was the purpose of having that money?
I just prefer to keep my money in the safe instead of a bank.
And so would any of your family members have access to that,
To the safe, or
to the inside of the safe?
they could get in it if they wanted to.
And do you know how many guns on average were inside that safe?
Anywhere from 10 to overstuffed.
Oh my
Did you- in other words,
gosh.
Let's start with you. Did you keep any guns in Peterson that were not in the safe?
I kept my Glock in my room and then usually 3 to 5 in my truck,
3 to 5 in
Why?
your
You were
truck.
afraid of
I'm skipping forward.
You lived on Peterson Road.
roughly 45 minutes.
Right, so what was the plan for that morning?
We were just going to get up early, go tear the building down, and have it ready for Randy Fife to come pick it up.
All right, this is the
So
day
who went
of,
to tear down the building?
Me and my brother,
I think.
Do you know what time he left that?
roughly daylight.
All right. Do you remember what you did the night before?
The night before,
Yes.
what time?
Well, what did you do the day before, the night before?
Normal things, went up on the hill, took care of the animals. Then my dad came down, brought my kid donuts again, which he never would stop doing. And then my kid didn't want to leave, so he stayed with my kid.
And did you ever leave to go up and commit these murders?
No,
Did you know that Jake and your dad had left?
no,
How do you explain that?
I just didn't know they left.
Did you go to bed that night? Did you go to sleep that night?
Yes,
About what time did you go to sleep?
10-ish,
I'm sorry?
10-ish, sometime around there. I can't, it's been a long time, so usually around 10-ish,
That's your normal bedtime?
usually when I'm home.
Did you ever hear any trucks leave and come or anything like that?
No.
What kind of trucks did you own?
Every one of us owned diesels.
Are those loud?
Yes,
Did
Were you
hear
paying
coming and going?
attention?
Did you hear anything like that?
no,
Was Vine sleeping with you that night, if you remember?
don't think so.
Oh,
Did you wake up at any time in the middle of it?
Not that I can remember.
So explain the morning when you got up. Explain what you did, what happened.
When I got up, my brother was in the living room and I was going to make coffee like I do almost every morning. And he said we didn't have time for that. We had to go tear the building down. He had to get back.
So what happened?
We went and tore the building down.
had to get
And
back
How long
where?
did it take you from Peterson to get out to that place?
About 45 minutes.
Did you have everything you needed?
I thought I did.
Explain.
I ended up leaving my chainsaw at home.
All right, so what did you do?
After we tore down what we could with what we had, we turned around to come back and get the saw with the intention of going back to finish. But
So explain what happened when you returned to the house that night.
when I got back to the house, the news was saying that there had been people killed on Union Hill. And my
And
dad was freaking out saying he couldn't get a hold of Chris Sr.
where was Jake?
Jake was outside on the phone,
Where was your mother?
the mudroom, I believe.
So what was your reaction?
I was trying to ask my dad what was really on the news and what was going on, and he was still freaking out saying Chris wouldn't answer the phone. And then Jake come in and said that Andrew Carson had told him that Hannah and Frankie and everybody had been killed.
What was your reaction?
I really don't know how to put it into words.
Take a minute,
It,
do the best you can.
it was more heartbreaking and more of a trauma than I've ever been through in my life.
So what did you do?
I ended up getting on my four-wheeler and going up the hill.
Up the hill behind your farm?
Yes,
Why did you do that?
I always go out in the woods when I need to calm down or need a little bit of therapy.
Did anybody go with you?
No, just me.
Did you bury some
How
evidence
long
out
did you
there,
stay
George?
A couple hours maybe.
What did you do there?
Lord
I came back down the
Jesus,
hill.
this is the weakest alibi
When I
ever.
come back down, Samantha Frederick called me a little after her, and my ex-wife Tabby called me.
What was Jake doing?
He was sitting in the living room in kind of like a daze.
What was your dad doing?
He was still in the living room and just kind of sitting there talking to Jake, and Jake really wasn't responding.
What was your mother doing?
If I remember correctly, she was in the kitchen with the kids.
Was there a time when Jake left?
Um, I was told that he had tried to go to Union Hill and they wouldn't let him through.
Did you see him leave, or was he not around the house for some period of
I
time?
did not see him leave.
So then how do you know? Oh, because somebody told you. That's right.
So explain the best you can the next few days after that.
After that, my dad stuck around the house for a few days.
That was unusual.
Unusual for him to stay that long, yes.
Okay, go on.
Then him and my mom went and quit fighting and arguing, so he left.
And what did you do?
I just stuck pretty well around the house for a couple of days, and then I had to continue going back and working for Bernie. And then about a week later, we continued me going back on my normal working for Bernie and anybody else that was around.
Did your dad ever talk to you in those following days about the murder?
No.
Did your brother Jake ever talk to you at any time about the murder?
No.
Did your mother ever talk to you at any time about the murder?
No.
Did you ever overhear them talking amongst themselves?
No.
Oh my gosh.
Did you have any clue your family was involved in this?
No.
Did you go to the funeral?
Yes.
Explain that.
I believe Gary's was first, and we didn't really go to the funeral for that. We just went to the viewing.
Okay, who's me?
Me, my dad, and my brother.
And
Oh boy.
explain how that was.
We took my truck to Kentucky somewhere.
Who
And
drove?
Me,
Whose idea was it to go?
everybody's. Then we went there.
Oh, so you were around for that plan?
stayed for the
Okay.
viewing, Then left.
Did you ever talk about the murders on the way?
No.
How about on the way home?
No.
What was your dad's demeanor?
Acted like my dad.
What about Jake?
Jake just acted like Jake. He doesn't hardly ever show emotion.
Hey, LFT. How are you doing, babe?
Yes.
Did you see him laugh and smile? and
Thanks
smile?
for popping in.
Had you ever seen him act like that?
No,
Never?
never in my life.
You said he doesn't show emotion.
No.
What do you mean by that?
He won't even let you give him a hug.
What about towards Sophie?
Sophie's the only person I know of that could hug him. Nobody else. He doesn't like being touched.
Did you
Oh,
go to the other?
You guys seem like a fun bunch.
We
Let me
went
just
to the
say.
Viewing of Hannah and little Chris, Frankie, and the rest of their family. And after the viewing, we went to the actual funeral of it.
Right. And how did you arrive?
We took my truck.
You?
Yes, me and my dad.
Did you
drove.
bring a casserole
Me.
or
Until
anything?
We got to the funeral.
Explain that.
When I got to the actual service, my dad and brother sat together there, and I waited on Patty, and me and her sat together.
So what did you do after the service?
We went to the cemetery.
And how did that work? What were the,
Dad and Jake took my truck, and I rode with Patty.
right? And then after the service at the cemetery?
I got in my truck and came home.
With who?
My dad and brother.
At any point in time were the murders discussed?
No,
Did you know they had any involvement whatsoever?
no.
I don't know, Jorge. I don't believe you.
So after the funerals are over,
Get to the
The
point,
investigation.
counselor. I'm getting sleepy.
you're aware of the investigation?
Yes.
Did BCI or Pike County Sheriff or anybody else come and talk to you or want to talk to you as far as you know about anything you knew about?
No.
What about your dad?
I believe they talked to him once, maybe twice.
I sure
Did you
did. We
discuss
got the
that with him?
recordings, and he spilt the tea on
How
all
do you know
the
they talked to him?
criminals
Only thing
around
he ever
those
said was they
parts.
talked to him.
What about Jake?
I think they came twice to talk to Jake.
Were you there one time?
I think I was there for two. I think I was there for both.
All right, where did they come to?
Peterson.
Did you see them pull in the driveway?
Yes.
Where were you?
One time I was working on my truck, and the other time we were loading a trailer
And where were you working on the truck?
in the driveway.
And what did you do when you saw BCI?
Just continue working on my truck.
Did they ever come up and say, hey, George, they'd like to talk to you?
No.
Do you know if that was the first or second time they came?
The truck or
When you were working on the truck?
the first, I believe.
And do you know where you were the second time?
We were loading our stuff in the trailer after we sold the farm.
At How's Active Silver?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about that first one for a minute. Who was home when BCI came on?
Me, my brother, my son, my niece, and my mother.
And did you send a text that day?
No.
On the second visit, did you send a text?
I think it was.
BCI.
I think it was the second visit that I sent a text.
All right, what text did you send?
I told my father not to come.
Why did you do that?
Because
Yeah.
my father was insulting BCI, saying they were incompetent and they were looking at the wrong people and they wouldn't listen to everything he was telling them who to look at.
And so why did you send him that text?
I was tired of hearing who he was accusing.
Who was he accused?
Skip Montgomery,
Who's that?
guy, landowner in Pike County.
I still don't understand why you sent that text message to your father.
Because I didn't want him to spend hours with his conspiracy theories.
Did your dad have conspiracy theories normally?
Yes.
Explain that.
Always his whole life said the whole Pike County law enforcement system's been bought off by Skip.
I want to stop you right there, George. Listen, and then I'm probably going to call it a night, you guys. I'm getting tired. 3 lives in one day is too much for you, Darrell. But I'll come live a little earlier because we got like about 30 minutes left of his testimony, and I'll play it before we start tomorrow, before their testimony starts for the day. But George, really? You sent a text to your dad telling him not to come over while the BCI was there because you didn't want to hear his conspiracy theories. I don't believe you. I believe you text your dad because you're giving him a heads up. Don't play with these people out here, especially me. All right, you guys. So I'll be live. I'll come live a little earlier than I normally do. I'll start at about 8:30. And then that way, we can, if you guys want to listen to the rest of it with me, or obviously you're capable of doing it on your own. But anyway, you guys know how to work the YouTubes. But anyway, we'll talk about the rest of it tomorrow. But I'm tired, y'all. I need to make memes. So good night to everyone. Thank you for being here. If you haven't done so already, give your girl a thumbs up. Thank you for the super chats and stickers. Thanks for supporting me. I really appreciate it, you guys. It means the world to me. Oh, thank you, Tony. Thank you guys. I want to hear what he has to say, and I'm under the impression that they ended the direct questioning ended today. So tomorrow, I believe, is going to be cross-examination. And quite honestly, I can't wait to see what Canepa does. And I'm thinking it's going to be her because it's the smart play. George does have a certain level of disdain for women. And if you want to elicit a response, evoke an emotional response in particular, yeah. If somebody doesn't like women, it's no different than with Amber Heard, right? Ben Chu could have questioned Amber, but it had to be Camille because Camille is a woman, and Amber, she knew exactly what to do to push Amber's buttons. And just the fact that she was questioning her to begin with pushed Amber's buttons. So I really think that's what's, I think that's what the plan is for tomorrow anyway. All right. So I'll see you guys in the morning, hopefully. And for those of you guys who don't join in the morning, don't you worry. I'll go live tomorrow night too, and we'll talk about it all. All right. Okie dokie. Good night, you guys. Bye.